welcome to Digital Shift, also known as Corporate Evolution Tales. Join us as we dive into the dynamic world of digital transformation. From illuminating case studies to captivating narratives, we uncover the stories behind companies' journeys toward digital excellence. Whether you are a seasoned corporate leader or an aspiring innovator, our podcast explores the shifts, challenges of modern business evolution. Hello everyone, this is another episode of Digital Shifts, aka Corporate Evolution Tales, and today my guest is Mousa Hamad. Thank you, Mousa, so much for being my guest today. How are you?
Doing well, Mariam. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Yeah, of course. Would you like to present yourself before we'll dive into digital transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in technology for about 20 years. I started actually just as a help desk tech, kind of answering calls and troubleshooting passwords and fixing printers and stuff. And along the way, kind of, no education in tech and no certifications, but really learned that the people is what makes it. The support of the customers, our internal customers, when we talk about IT, and really had a penchant and a passion for solving problems. As I progressed in my career, I was lucky enough to convince some companies to take a chance on me in leadership roles. And so I had an opportunity to build IT departments from the ground up, putting in all the proper and appropriate systems. I had a couple opportunities to rebuild some departments, do some combination of departments at companies that do extensive mergers and acquisitions. Centered around procurement, IT, and really a lot of it has been around the building and setting up of processes and finding tools that help empower the business to increase velocity. My last role that I held was as vice president of corporate IT and procurement at a software fintech called PushPay. I'm now currently contracting and freelancing, so I'm providing my services to a lot of businesses out there around the digital transformation, helping with acquisitions, software implementation, but also with some software companies in terms of their product roadmap around procurement and things like that. Yeah, so it's just a little bit about me, and I'm excited to chat more and learn and yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think everything that you mentioned is directly related to digital transformation. So let's start from basic question that I'm usually giving. It's about what is your opinion about digital transformation? What is digital transformation for you?
Yeah, I always say there's like these flash words that people throw out that get a little cringy for me as I sit here on this podcast right now. One of the ones I would say is like brand building. It's like, how do you do that? What is that? And it's so easy to use the buzzword of digital transformation. To me, what it means is the enabling of people through technology. We have so many companies out there today that do things in a very repetitive, non-automated way, right? And so I read an article about the New Zealand Health Ministry the other day. They were managing $20 billion worth of spend and vendors in spreadsheets, right? To me, digital transformation is taking that and putting a system in front of it so that the people that are working with the data and trying to get answers don't do the thing that I think many of your listeners will have inevitably been faced with, which is your boss comes to you and says, hey, how much have we spent on this with this? Or what are we doing with this? And you have to go back and do this manual work to give them an answer that really we should be able to just click a couple of buttons. I mean, my goodness, we live in the age of AI now, right? Like these questions shouldn't be hard to answer. And so to me, digital transformation is empowering those people in the business to do their jobs more effectively and efficiently. And then I think the part that some people miss and a lot of companies miss is that by doing that, you're now creating space for your employees to do more and think about more, right? And so there's a backside of that a lot of people don't realize as well.
Agree. You mentioned about people, and I think sometimes, as I'm also directly connected with digital transformation, I always come to this that people are afraid of digital transformation. What do you think about that? Is there a way or approach that we can kind of suggest to our listeners so they make sure that people are not afraid of digital transformation, specifically in companies that want to start it, for example?
Yeah, I think for some folks, when they hear digital transformation, they probably translate that in their minds to I'm losing my job.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so I think, look, we have to be honest. There's going to be times where efficiencies are created via technology that allow a company to become more efficient in their human capital. Like we just have to accept that as a statement of fact and a fact of life. But I think the most important thing you can do to kind of help those folks that are a little scared of that concept and idea is make them a part of it. right?
Okay.
If you make them a part
Yeah.
of it and you allow them to have input into the process and be, in the conversation, people are always less afraid of what they know, right?
Yeah.
And so and I think that would be a big part of it. And then beyond that, I would say preach to your, maybe preach is not the right word, but talk to your
Yeah.
employees. If you're going to embark to go transform a process within your company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Show them what the upside is for them.
Yeah.
Right. What does the back end look like? What does success look like?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you even bring in a customer from another company that rolled out the same
Yeah.
process or did the same thing and have them say, hey, it wasn't so bad on the
Mm-hmm.
back end. Here's what we were then able to do. You've a lot of folks in today's world that they view their value based on what they can hoard in terms of what they
Yeah.
do and what they know. And you got to loosen their grip on that and make them understand that the business operates better
Mm-hmm.
if we're all working towards this way of transforming our process and using technology that's available to us to do so.
Mm-hmm. Agree, definitely. And you mentioned also AI, and I can't skip this question. Do you think that AI is supporting digital transformation, or it's more like making it harder?
Oh, I think it's 100% supporting it. And I think what AI does, and this is not anything original that I'm saying, it's been out there, but it's a force multiplier. And one of the things when I looked at in one of my previous companies where we rolled out, it wasn't an AI based procurement software that took us from working in spreadsheets and Confluence pages to an automated systemic process.
Yeah.
What it allowed us to do was then put that person where you would normally have needed a 2 or a 3 person team to run the procurement department. You're now able to have one person doing it. And instead of being the operator, they're the orchestrator, right? They're the ones ensuring that the process is running. And so AI is much the same way. I read, I'm really bad at remembering company names, but I remember the case.
Yeah, me too. No
but I
worries.
read about this one company that began using AI chatbot to support their customers, and they had a ridiculously high CSAT. And then all of a sudden, one of their customers figured out that it was AI and said, hey, it's really, you should make sure that the people that are chatting with the bot know that it's AI. And instantly, without anything changing, all the same answers, everything, the satisfaction dropped. And so there's a couple of things that are happening there. First, there's a perception problem with AI.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's when folks have a distrust of that, it's not going to enable you to move forward. And the other thing that's happening is that we have to feed it. That chat bot was only as good as the knowledge base that was sitting on top of. And so for people that are afraid of that or think it doesn't enable digital transformation or think that they're going to be left out of that process, right? They have to understand that somebody's got to feed the beast in order for the beast to run, kind of thing.
Agree. And usually people are forgetting that it's just the data, the amount of data that it has that is like used. It's not like if you are asking him, hey, please, can you refine my text? It will just like think, okay, I like this person, this user, let's just refine it properly. It's just about the data that it has that it can compare to and make the improvements, right? So
it's binary.
Sometimes
it's just going to do what it can do, right?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I think people are forgetting that. So there is this conversation going on about, I will be replaced with AI. What I'm always saying is you won't be replaced unless you know how to use AI, because this tool, it's a tool. It's not like the person, or like, I don't know, it doesn't have that scalability to replace a person if you know your job and you can really use the tool, right? So
100%. I'll say this. Take a team of 5, and that's doesn't matter what the function is, right? And if you introduce AI into that, I think we have to be honest, where if AI is done, if whatever function you're putting it in, if you do it right, you're not going to need all 5 of those people. And that's where the people who are out ahead and learning how to leverage it and learning how to use it as a force multiplier and understanding how to feed and interact with the system. If that team of 5 goes down to 3, if you're playing musical chairs, your knowledge of AI is going to make sure that you have a seat.
Right.
And so we do have to be honest about that businesses are looking at that in that way. And I can see, the folks that are scared are also probably the ones who aren't taking the time to learn and innovate and are terrified of digital transformation to begin with. Right.
Yes, agree, definitely. And when speaking about digital transformation, so based on your experience, do you think that we have specific phases that we can highlight, like how it starts, how it's like continuing and if there is an end for digital transformation. So what do you think about phases? Do we have them?
Yeah, I mean, how we start is, I think, inevitably and eventually the pain just becomes too much,
Mm-hmm.
right? The managing
Yeah.
of billions of dollars of spends in a spreadsheet, the manual looking for approvals in an email,
Mm-hmm.
all these things that can have a digital footprint put on them that would make them more efficient and easier. Those eventually come to a head. And from there,
Yeah.
it's on the leaders in those areas of the
Mm-hmm.
business to go and take the leadership, the purse string holders, the budget owners on a journey of understanding why you
Yeah.
need to go out and spend what looks like an obscene amounts of money,
Mm-hmm.
right? What the ROI is going to be on that? How is this
Yeah.
going to put money back into the business? And so I think that's the first big phase. And then I'm just going to jump straight to the end. I think if you get into the mindset that digital transformation ever ends, you're falling behind. Because I mean, look how quickly and exponentially technology has improved over the last
Mm-hmm.
year and a
Yeah.
half, right? And so we always need to be seeking out ways to utilize these tools
Mm-hmm.
out in the world. And
Yeah.
I'll even take it a step further. Once we've gone out, if you've gone out and you've bought this transformative tool that's going to make your process and everything better, it's not like that vendor or owner of that tool is just going to stop innovating, right? And so if you're doing it right, you're innovating along with them. You're being mindful of their
Mm-hmm.
product roadmap, new features that are coming out to see how those can impact your business and
Yeah.
continue to move them forward and transform them in a positive.
Mm-hmm. Agree, definitely. And I think just as a beginning, like the phase that where we are starting, I think I would say it's most important one for me, like how we are kicking off with the digital transformation and what kind of tools we are using. So, do you think there are proper tools or generally like technology that can help us with the digital transformation being done properly?
I think I can't speak to a specific thing because in my mind, when I think about digital transformation, it's addressing a problem that needs to be solved. And so for
Mm-hmm.
everybody, digital transformation can look different. Over the last couple of years, my big focus, the thing I've been privileged enough to try to lead transformation on has been procurement.
Mm-hmm.
It's become, if you look
Yeah.
out there in the space from 2018, when I first started kind of dabbling in contract management as a director of IT, to today in 2025, the proliferation of tools and the accessibility of tooling and information has just increased
Mm-hmm.
exponentially. And so there's not one like tool or anything to me that drives it. I think the measure of whether digital transformation is needed comes from your people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
now, I always joke I'm an analog guy in the digital world. I think you gauge the need for digital transformation by having a conversation.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I see.
And so from that standpoint, it's happening in the one-on-ones in a Google Doc. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then you learn that you need to go solve this problem. And then from there, it's doing the research and the work to figure out what tooling is going to help transform your business.
Yeah, well said. And what do you think about how people can understand what part of processes can be digitalized? Is there any like, okay, this is the skill that you need to have, or this is the knowledge that you should have to understand these are the processes or like the gaps that can be digitalized? Do you think that there is kind of approach to it?
Yeah, I think this is where you have to have a lot within a business. You have to have really good, strong conversations
Mm-hmm.
happening, and
Yeah.
you have to have good collaboration. And usually, what I find is the idea of transformation, the idea of digitally improving a process, is most effective when it's cross departmental.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where you really see the majority of things falling through the cracks. And so when you
Yeah.
talk about like what tools and everything, I think it's or what you identify that needs to be
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
transformed. It's simply, again, I go back to leaders talking, understanding whatever process it is they're trying to solve for, and recognizing that between their departments, there's pain points, there's
Mm-hmm.
things that are being missed, and again, I'll go back to procurement. It's well, legal says, well, finance didn't do this, and finance says, well, procurement didn't do this, and procurement says InfoSec didn't do this. That right there, you have a need for digital transformation because
Okay.
something needs to act as an air traffic controller across
Mm-hmm.
these departments. And in today's day and age, regardless of process, whatever you're doing, there is very little that happens in a business that sits within
Mm-hmm.
one organization.
Mm-hmm.
Sales doesn't just sit in sales. There's a
Yeah.
back office operations team that's configuring that tooling stack for them. Purchasing sits across finance, legal, InfoSec, IT. Software rollout sits between IT and other systems and teams as well.
Yeah.
There's no one thing that a single department owns
Mm-hmm.
And if they do, then that's great. And that makes the need for transformation, I think, less because the
Yeah.
pain points are less apparent.
Right.
But in today's day and age, anything, if you're above 100 people in a business, above 100,
Yeah.
150 people, your business probably needs some level of digital
Right.
transformation to create efficiency and the operability between your
Mm-hmm.
departments. I read Simon Sinek, I love
Mm-hmm.
everything that he does and says, but he wrote this book, Leaders Eat Last, and he used this case study about
I'm
this.
not sure if it's in my background, but I have it there.
Oh, is that right? Yeah,
Yeah, I love
it's
it.
the book I recommend to everybody. I'm like,
Yes.
gotta read this book. So now you can check me and correct me if I'm wrong because it's been many years since I've read it. But I referenced he has this case study with a factory. It's 150 employees. They do manufacturing, doesn't matter what,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing a great job. And so the owners are like, cool, let's add people and let's grow. And the
Yeah.
factory grows. They add headcount, and efficiency goes down, quality goes down, and profitability goes down, so they scale back to 150. Then it's good again, and they go back up. Long story short, what they discover when they finally bring in an organizational psychologist is that after 150 people, you lose the ability
Yeah.
to really meaningfully connect and work.
Yeah.
And I think that's where digital transformation steps in. When you get
Okay.
beyond that point where you no longer have that tribe that can communicate
Mm-hmm.
efficiently, you need to empower that tribe with tooling in order to be able to scale.
Yes.
Do you
Yeah.
remember that case study from it? Am I
Yeah.
making?
Yeah.
I
No,
feel like I've
you are
talked
not
about it
making
for
it.
years.
No, it's exactly what's, it's the one of the examples that I also remember. And it's, it's interesting because like being in this digitalized world where, so my company is supporting with this stuff, and we are always like paying attention to this kind of stuff to understand, okay, maybe this is the case, maybe that is the case. So just based on the experience that we have, we are already able to compare to understand. Of course, we are doing also this kind of like investigation and stuff, but first of all, as you mentioned, there are so many great examples from where we can take their experience and try to understand maybe that is the case or it's something new that we need to handle. So yeah, very well said. And do you have any challenges in your mind based on your experience that you would like to share specifically on digital transformation? So some frequent challenges that you came across.
I mean, we all, the answer to that to me, I feel like I'm taking the easy way out, but it's people hate change, right? And
Yeah.
so it starts with that winning hearts and minds, right?
Yeah.
Getting them to understand that you're trying to make their life easier. You're trying to make it so that their job can be done in 8 hours instead of 10. And guess what? Now this becomes a psychology thing. It's okay to not need to work 10 or 12 hours a day. Take some of that time back and go on a walk, go play with your kid, like go do something. We live in an age of, my girlfriend and I have become fascinated with the Middle Ages recently. Right. Okay. And like the Middle Ages, the medical stuff they did, like just, it was very, very archaic. And right. We live, despite all the challenges and everything in the world, we live, to me, I believe today in the best time to be alive. Right. We should not need to work 16 hours a day to do our job. And when you think about digital transformation from that lens, you say, this can enable me to do my job in a reasonable amount of time, still put food on my kids' table. And then I can also have time to be with them instead of sitting there poring over spreadsheets at 2 a.m. Right. I can be asleep and be a better version of myself. And so I think the challenges are, people drive value in the work that they do in their jobs. And if they don't hoard and own everything, and if they're not able to wear that badge of honor that I worked 15 hours yesterday, they feel like they're losing their grip on that and their identity. And I think that's the biggest challenge. That's one of the biggest challenges to driving digital transformation. When a project doesn't go well, project management certainly is going to be a big part of it. But the narrative and the story that you tell to bring the people along that are impacted is equally important to me.
Yes, agree. You mentioned about these hours, and I remembered several LinkedIn posts like, I am so tired, but I still keep going. And I'm like, no, that's not the case. Like, you shouldn't be proud of the case that like you work 15, 16 hours. You should be ashamed that you didn't find anything that can give a solution to it.
Yes.
So I'm like,
Exactly.
agreed.
You're exactly right. And by the way, your kids aren't proud that you're doing that. Your dog's not proud you're doing that, right? They'd rather be out on a walk at the park.
Agree, definitely. And so you mentioned about these challenges. One of the things that I usually like to ask is also about the experience of people that are participating in digital transformation. So do you think that it's major or crucial to have these experienced people or like having people that have the knowledge of digital transformation in the process of changing stuff, or it's just about the onboarding of people that still don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I think this is kind of one of those things where there's advantages to both. So if you've got folks who have experienced in a really meaningful, transformative project for a business, that's always a good thing to have. But sometimes having somebody who's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and has never had experience, they can bring a different perspective and ask questions that somebody who's gone through the same process a dozen times has taken for granted, right? And I think it's more about if you're a business leader and you're endeavoring to help transform your business, you don't look at anybody on the team as a weakness or a strength. Use what asset and value that they bring. The person that's never done it before has just as much value as the person that's lived it and breathed it every day for 10 years, because they're going to bring a different level of questions, of scrutiny. And you almost, I don't think I've ever actually quite said this to somebody, but as I talk through this with you now, you almost want to tell them, hey, your distrust of this is actually not a bad thing. Poke holes in it. Tell us what we're not thinking about. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us why you think your way of continuing down this path is going to be better than what we're endeavoring to do, because you may think of something that we didn't. Right. Now, at the end of it, something is going to change. So make your mind up to that too, right? But you have a voice and a seat in this process to be able to tell us what your concerns are and what corners you see around that we can't, because you live in the day to day.
Right. I think in one word it will be balance, like balancing the experience and as you said, like the fresh blood to to everything and 100%. Fresh brain, because definitely, like even in usual cases when we have this mega experience in anything and we are assigned with a junior person, it for me, like having 10 years of experience is I'm enjoying being with junior people just because of the challenges that they are giving me, like the questions, and I'm like, okay, I didn't think about it before, maybe I need to like review this. And it's like those fresh questions are always helping to improve, even if you have like great experience of several years.
100%. As long as you also, I think you have to create an environment that people feel safe and challenging and asking those questions as well. And I think that's a lot of what leaders miss, because they've done this so many times. They're just like, no, get on the bus. We got this. Let's go. Right. But you've got to be willing to allow for a dialogue for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Being open to changes and challenges is something important to remember for any leader, I think.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I think this will be my last question, and it's about the advice. So what advice would you offer to other companies or individuals if they are just starting with digital transformation on their side?
I'm going to hone in on when you talk about companies that are just starting. I'm going to center this advice towards companies that haven't moved yet. They're at square one and they haven't done anything. And I think the best advice I can give is know that no matter what you're doing and how well you think you're doing it, there's a better way. And if you stop thinking that there's a better way to do things and to improve upon things, then you're stagnant. And whether it be in business or in sports, if you think you're already doing things the best that you can, you're putting a ceiling on what your success is going to be. And so know that there's a better way and be open and willing to explore the possibilities of what that looks like for you, your business, and your staff.
Yes, very well said. Awesome. Well, anything you would like to add, Mousa, from your side before we will wrap up this episode?
No, I appreciate the time and the conversation. It's always fun to run into a fellow Simon Sinek fan for sure. To anybody who's listening, if any of this resonated, feel free to track me down on LinkedIn. We can have a conversation and just talk about this stuff. Clearly, I don't lack for passion for it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I will make sure to tag you in the post so everyone has ability to reach out. And thank you so much for being my guest today.
Mariam, I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me.